Have you ever wondered why the concept of transgender, although a not-so-new topic to be tackled, still seems to be a taboo here in our society? While the younger generation tends to know more than the older one, why is there an insufficiency about this certain topic, especially since the emergence of the youth population of the said gender is starting to be known? Hi, I am Xander, and for today, we'll be tackling about transgender and the rise of transgender youth.
Y'all better quiet down!
Transgender is an umbrella term used to define someone who does not identify as their assigned gender at birth and rather just seeks to be assigned at a different gender. This covers gender fluid, gender queer, male to female, female to male, and other gender non-conforming identities, though often it is just shortened to trans. When the widespread movement started in New York in 1969, the lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and queer, or simply just the LGBTQ community started it simply as a gay liberation movement. It was a rally of queer people protesting against police brutality and the continued suppression of their freedom of expression. With trans women of color like Marsha Johnson and Sylvia Rivera in the front lines, it is truly undeniable that trans people of color were considered vital and that the term gay was used as an umbrella term for the entire movement. However, due to ignorance, bigotry, and both, people chose to snub that fact.
When men impersonate women for reasons of entertainment or profit, they insult women.
That was Jean O'Leary, founder of the lesbian feminist movement and the co-founder of the Coming Out Day, misgendering Rivera after she spoke about the incarcerated transgender women and gay men who could not be at that event. O'Leary points out that Rivera, being a man, was allowed to talk politics in an open mic event where everyone was not allowed to talk politics.
I have been beaten. I have had my nose broken. I have been thrown in jail. I have lost my job. I have lost my apartment for gay liberation. And you all treat me this way?
O'Leary has since apologized for that mistreatment.
Think about that!
Open criticism against trans people, particularly trans women, were not at use at all then. But does it still happen? Well, sadly, over time, international queer rights continue to progress at snail's pace. Trans people, even at the front lines, were barely given enough spaces in the community they began with. What's more, trans people, particularly trans women of color, especially in white-dominated and patriarchal countries like the US or the UK, remain to be stereotyped and discriminated against, often assaulted and incarcerated by merely just existing due to their gender or even their race. On the Philippine context, in 2015, the murder of trans Filipino woman Jennifer Laude was the talk of various local LGBTQ groups. Laude, post-mortem, was repeatedly misgendered by her parents and the officials that handled her case. Her fiancé was forced out of the country for no reason. Her murderer, despite admitting to the killing, was only sentenced for 6 years of imprisonment on plea bargain in the US instead of the Philippines. People countered the argument of trans people's safety here in the Philippines with the events in 2016, when the first openly transgender congresswoman was elected.
Did you ever struggle that I'm sinning?
Well, first of all, we Catholics do not interpret the Bible literally.
But
in
not
real
all
life.
Catholics are like that, huh?
Well, not all. But you know what?
I mean,
That's their business.
yeah.
Geraldine Rambano from Bataan received fanfare from local queer communities up until the public discussion of her seat of power died down.
Dumako naman tayo sa issue ng death penalty. Matatanda ang noong una ay kontra siya sa kontrobersyal na parusang kamatayan. Subalit kapansin-pansin ang pagbaluktot niya sa naunang desisyon nang aprubahan niya ang nasabing panukalang batas. At ang isa pang kapanapanabik pag-usapan ay ang pagtalon niya mula sa bakod ng mga dilawan tungo sa kampo ng PDP laban.
That may be why. All in all, for trans youth worldwide, there seems to be a bleak future. And considering those local events, the trans Filipino youth is facing an uphill battle. Though the Philippines is tolerant of the queer community, acceptance is different. Of course, those that stay in the closet only risk suicidal tendencies and mental health disorders. That's just it. Inside the closet, physical threats are minimized to microaggressions. Everyday verbal, non-verbal, and environmental slights, snubs, or insults, whether intentional or unintentional, which communicate hostile, derogatory, or negative messages to target persons based solely upon their marginalized group membership. Regardless of age though, trans people experience discrimination due to 1. Religious beliefs, 2. Notions that gender is dependent on biological sex, 3. Misunderstanding that gender identity is simply just an expression of sexuality, and 4. The adoption of outdated Western psychiatry that declares trans and gay people are mentally ill. With the Philippines being majority Roman Catholic, we'll tackle that first. The last known mention of any trans-specific issues in the Roman Catholic context was in 2016, in a transcript of conversation between Pope Francis and the bishops of Poland. According to that transcript, Francis said,
"In Europe, America, Latin America, Africa, and in some countries of Asia, there are genuine forms of ideological colonization taking place, and one of these is the ideology of gender. Today, children are taught in school that everyone can choose his or her sex. Why are they teaching this? Because the books are provided by the persons and institutions that give you money. These forms of ideological colonization are also supported by influential countries, and this is terrible." In a conversation with Pope Benedict, he said to me, "Holiness, this is the age of sin against God the Creator. God created man and woman. God created the world in a certain way, and we are doing the exact opposite." Pope Benedict's observation should make us think. This is the age of sin against God the Creator. That will help us.
He allegedly included this idea in his speech when he visited the Philippines a year prior. So far, there have not been any reparations being done by either the Pope or the Vatican itself, regardless of any excuses being made by the more inclusive Catholic institutions or individuals. Despite an overwhelming surge of trans prejudice from various religious groups, there is nothing significantly written negative about the trans people from the Christian Bible, the Torah, and even the Quran. Religiously, the Hindus are liberal towards queer people in their scriptures and myths, and an open acceptance for a third gender. In the Buddhist texts of Lotus Sutra and Vimalakirti Sutra, there are unknown condemnations of trans people, only a set of virtues to follow. Trans youth experience a shared hurt of discrimination on a daily basis. Though not outright, even the smallest of gestures may affect their lives. It is worth noting that in an American survey, trans children and adolescents experience violence and bullying inside school. 78% reported harassment, 35% reported physical assault, and 12% reported sexual violence. To an even more disturbing figure, 31% of the respondents said that these reported cases came from the hands of faculty and staff. To align with this data, we gathered interviews from trans students of De La Salle University Dasmariñas Senior High School. Just a disclaimer for this video, the names of some respondents were actually put into pseudonyms to protect their identities. We asked them what types of discrimination they may experience on campus and how it may affect them. In one of our interviews, Maki Wada, an openly trans grade 12 student, expressed his fear of rejection from strangers in public.
There's this underlying fear of non-acceptance from people that always creeps into me whenever I go out in public.
SJ, a non-binary grade 12 student, agreed to this sentiment.
Kapag magsi-CR nga lang ako, hindi na maiwasan yung susundan ako ng tingin. Kasi I have a masculine haircut and I present very androgynously.
Gina, a masculine non-binary grade 12 student, actually pushes for normalization of asking someone's preferred pronouns. He stated,
"I don't correct others kasi they address me as she. Mas prominent kasi yung feminine features ko."
When asked about the words of the prominent Roman Catholic figure, Maki was not surprised. and rather he was actually disappointed, stating that the Pope was considered to be more liberal than his predecessors. Gina, however, found it kind of ironic, stating that the Pope accepted gay people but condemned trans people.
It's ironic for me kasi kung susuportahan mo isang community, why not everyone else?
For all three respondents, education seems to be the primary solution for this problem. Gina pushes for people to ask for someone's pronouns before assuming, while SJ believes that the curiosity for the existence of trans people should not be hindered by a false sense of morality through bigoted thinking. Maki, however, worries that this might be too slow for a solution, especially with severe cases like Laudes and the suicide rate among queer youth. Today's trans youth is something to ponder on. Its origin, the various perspectives, particularly the different religions, and the existing data should be considered before taking further action. Discrimination is inevitable, and while this issue is not rare, the discussion of its effects are. Trans youth will continue to grow in number as societal impressions improve. If discrimination persists despite the number, we are willingly letting our children walk into a slaughterhouse. However, inevitability does not equate to immortality. Raising awareness, listening to their voices, and educating ourselves will create a significant impact, particularly in preventing hate crimes. And we can only do this with much deeper understanding and open-mindedness in the society we live in.